Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we will learn a new topic, that is chapter 3 of your history part 1. The name of the chapter is Kinship, Caste and Class. Early societies. Early societies from 200 BCE to 200 CE. Okay, before we start the next topic, social contract, let us discuss some few more points about outcast. Most of the outcast people were also lived in the forest dwellers. We call them as Nisada. People living in the forest also practice pastoralism as well as agriculture. There were also some people who were regarded as Chandalas by the Brahmins. Who were the Chandalas? Chandalas were the untouchables. They were regarded as impure and subordinate. The Brahmanas regard themselves as pure. Manusmriti, a book, had clearly mentioned the duties of the untouchables, the Chandalas. So let's try to learn some of the duties of Chandalas as mentioned in the Manusmriti. The Chandalas, number one, the Chandalas were to live outside the city. That means they were not allowed to live in the vicinity of the people. They were to live in the outskirts. Point number two, they were not allowed to roam in the city at night. Point number three, they were to use discarded utensil. Utensil means all those pot, plate, bowl, glass, cups. Since they cannot afford to buy new one, they were to use the thrown away utensils. Number four, they were to wear the clothes of the dead people. Number five, they were not permitted to use costly jewelries or ornaments made of costly metals. They were to use only iron ornaments. So these were some of the main duties of Chandalas mentioned in the Manusmriti. Now let us go to our next topic, that is social contract. Under this topic, we will learn about how king came into being. In the previous chapter, we have learned about divine theory or divine kingship, like that of Kusans. According to the divine theory, kings were met by God and sent to this earth to rule the people. But here social contract is another theory. So from this theory we will try to understand how king came into being. Let us depend on one book, Buddhist text, Sutta Pitaka. According to this book, in the beginning, every living things, both human being as well as plants, animals, were not fully evolved in its bodily form, not fully developed. So at that period of time, there was a complete idyllic state of peace. The living beings take or depend on nature for only what they need for their food. But as time passes on, men became greedy, deceitful, and vindictive. People began to have, they wanted to have more and more. They became greedy. So as a result, many criminals came into being. Thieves, robbers emerged in the society, and now the people's life has become fully disturbed. And at this hour, they began to think seriously that they need a person who is equally strong and clever to banish the culprit. So what they do, they elected among themselves one person to be a leader who can banish the culprit from the society and protect the life and the property of the people. And in return, people giving a proportion of their rice. So this person who was elected by the people came to be regarded as the great elect, Mahasamata, the great elect. But if he turned out to be weak, then people could choose another leader. So what do you learn from this? Okay, from this we learn that the institution of kingship was of human choice, not that of divine origin. So in return, people giving a share of their rice means later on when people began to pay taxes to the king for the protection of their life and property. Understand? So according to this Buddhist text, kings were in the beginning chosen by the people. Next, we will talk about a new topic, that is handling text. When a historian discover or find any book, then they depend on different elements to analyze text. So what were the elements that they refer to get maximum information out of it? Number one, first they will analyze in the terms of language. So they will try to, firstly they will try to find out in what language the text was written. Second element, they refer to analyze or to handle a text. They will try to find out the kinds of text. What type of book was that? Whether it's a poem, whether it's a prose, whether it's a story, it's a letter, and so on. Thirdly, they will try to find out the author of the text. Author of the text, who had written the text. Number four, audience. Who were the audience, the readers of the books were the audience. So the historian will try to find out the audience, the composer, the writer, keeping in mind the taste, the interest of the people compose his book. So when a book is being discovered, they will try to find out the audience to analyze the text. Next element was date. So they will try to find out at what time that book was written and what time the book is referring to. Number 6, place. The historian tried to find out the place where the book was written, or the place, name of the place where the book is referring to. So these were the elements that the historian depend on to gain a maximum information from that book. Now, let us handle Mahabharata. Mahabharata is a book. Let us try to understand, or let us try to handle and analyze and get some idea about Mahabharata. Let us handle Mahabharata in terms of language. In what language was Mahabharata written? Mahabharata was written in a very simple Sanskrit. The Sanskrit used in the Vedas are very complex and difficult to understand, but the Sanskrit used in Mahabharata was very simple. Now let us go to the next kinds of books or kinds of texts. What type of text is this Mahabharata? Okay, Mahabharata is a story of the two sets of warring cousin brothers, right? Who were against each other for land and property and the power. Let us try to analyze Mahabharata. Author, who wrote Mahabharata? Okay, the story of the Mahabharata were first started by the charioteers bards. The charioteers bards were those people who had seen the battle, Mahabharata. So when they came back, they started narrating the story of Mahabharata. So the story of the Mahabharata was first started by the charioteers bard. They accompanied the brothers in the battlefield. So later on, this story of Mahabharata was committed to the writing, in the form of writing, by the learned Brahmins. And it was continued for several generations. The second half of Mahabharata was written by Ved Vyasa. So the content of Ved Vyasa was added to the Mahabharata. So the Mahabharata content about 1 lakh slokas, verses, with the addition of the second half of the Mahabharata. So in general, we say that Ved Vyas was the author of Mahabharata. Let us analyze another element to handle Mahabharata. Content. Content or kinds of text. Mahabharata content can be divided into two. One part as narrative, and another part as didactic. Narrative portion of Mahabharata contains the story of those two cousin brothers. What about didactic? Didactic portion of Mahabharata contains the social norms. Let us go to the next element, that is date. Let us find out at what period of time the Mahabharata was written. A period between 200 BCE to 200 CE. The worship of Vishnu became very, very popular among the people. You must have heard about Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna is one incarnation of Lord Vishnu. As the worship of Lord Vishnu became so popular during the period 200 BC to 200 CE, and Lord Krishna, don't get confused, Lord Krishna is the Lord Vishnu only. So, as Mahabharata had mentioned about Lord Krishna, many historians believe that Mahabharata was written between the period 200 BCE to 200 CE. Let us go to the next element to handle Mahabharata. To understand the place, let us try to discuss about one place called Hastinapur. This place called Hastinapur is still in existence in Meerut in Uttar Pradesh. But the question is that this Hastinapur is the same Hastinapur of Mahabharata. If this Hastinapur, present Hastinapur, is the same Hastinapur of the Mahabharata, then we will try to understand, or we will try to discuss some few points. In the year 1951-52, under the archaeologist named Bibilal, excavated some places in Hastinapur. So in that excavation, they have discovered 5 occupational levels. How many levels? 5 occupational levels. But all these 5 occupational levels are not important to us. Only the second and the third occupational levels are of interest to us. Because the second and the third occupational level come under the time of Mahabharata. So in the second occupational level that starts from 12th century to 7th centuries, the archaeologists had discovered some remains of houses built of mud. So from this we understood that from 12th to 7th centuries, people lived in reed house plastered with mud. And the third occupational level starts from 6th to 3rd century BC. Again, during this period, the archaeologists had discovered Same thing, the remains of houses and buildings. In this period, houses were built of mud bricks as well as bag bricks. So from this we came to understand that in the period 6th to 3rd centuries, people began to live in kacha houses as well as in paka houses. So with this we have come to an end our chapter 3. We will continue next chapter 4 in our next video. Thank you.